Okay, thanks very much. We'll make a start. We're starting off with the AGM, and I promptly hand over to the Secretary.
And the Secretary promises not to spend too long over the AGM so we can do some real astronomy. But this is a formality that we have to undertake. So the first item on the agenda is the minutes of the last meeting. And to save time, as the meetings always take the same format, I'm not reading the minutes in full. We note that the AGM in 2014 followed exactly the same format and agenda as usual. We don't have formally to sign the minutes. They're recorded and kept by the Secretary. So we can move on to receive the report of Counsel for the year 2014. And in 2014, the 4 usual quarterly meetings, along with Council meetings, were held here in London. A starting from scratch event took place in Yorkshire in October, and the annual weekend course was run in Shropshire in November. Membership of the SPA stood at 1,774 on the 31st of December, which was down by 175 from 1,949 at the start of the year. 292 members joined in the 12-month period and 467 failed to renew. Now this is a snapshot figure, as we've not yet reached the point at which those whose subscriptions expired on December the 31st are actually removed from the membership list. But in order to address a number of issues, a special meeting of Council was held on August the 30th, and the outcomes of this are currently being implemented. And in addition to the falling membership, of ongoing concern is the need to update the Society's web pages. This is proving a challenging task, and the Council working group is addressing options. 6 issues of Popular Astronomy were published during the year, together with the regular electronic news bulletins and a number of the email newsletters which are issued to announce urgent news and to remind members of upcoming meetings and events. During the year, we were saddened to learn the death of past President Professor Barry Jones, who had been unwell for a while. The SPA was present at a number of important events during the year, raising awareness of the Society and recruiting new members. At the start of the year, David Finnegan succeeded Darren Bushnell as Director of the Deep Sky section. And one of the key thrusts looking forward to the coming year is to focus on recruitment, especially amongst the younger generation. That is the report of Council.
I now hand over to the Treasurer.
Right, so for those of you who are regular attenders at the AGM, you remember perhaps that I left you with a cliffhanger last year because I presented the accounts and I had a problem in that although I was assuring you that the accounts for the year were accurate, or relatively accurate, I'm an astronomer, I deal with magnitudes, not pennies, but we got this far that we had a healthy profit from the books and the merchandise, and the weekend course made a profit, and the income was enhanced because of the generous donation of David Dewhurst. So here we were in generous donations. When we actually looked at the expenditure, it was the case that we did have a healthy excess, but of course that was due to the £10,000 we received from the Dewhurst bequest. And then I said, well, unfortunately, the next issue is the across the year accounting, and I had to admit I had a problem. It was a big problem, and I couldn't quite figure out what was wrong, but I knew it was wrong, and so I said, you know, these are draft, we'll have to see what happens. Well, I found out what happened, and it was so bizarre, I'm not surprised I didn't spot it. We had a transfer from our deposit account, the CAF account, to the NatWest current account on the 30th of September, and we're never doing that ever again. Because the money went in, £3,000 went into the NatWest account, and it came out of the CAF account on the 2nd of October. So suddenly, for 3 days, we had a mysterious £3,000 from nowhere. It went away again, of course, but in the meantime I closed the books and done the sums and got the wrong answer. I knew it was the wrong answer. This is the right answer for 2012-13, but we actually end up with a balance of £1,373, and we have £10,000 in the Dewhurst Fund. So that is where we were for 2013. I hope there are no questions on that, and I can proceed to this year's accounts. So this is the accounts for the year finishing on the 30th of September 2014. And so we have, I would say, slightly more normal looking accounts. I've put down at the bottom, it's always a little difficult to assess the value of the book income from the sales of books and merchandise compared to the actual amount we pay to buy them. And so the best thing to look at when you look at the income from books and merchandise and also the weekend course is to immediately think, well, how much did we pay for it and how much profit have we got? And so this year we have £960 profit from book sales and £3,000 profit from the merchandise sales, which is pretty good going. And then we also have a modest profit from the weekend course. At the same time, I've also started to include the income and expenditure from the Jubilee year 2013. And so I'm now closing the books and balancing up that account from the year. Now, the important thing was that we had a grant of £3,500 from the Royal Astronomical Society to support us in this Jubilee year, and we have spent that. The deal was that we would have the £3,500 because we would actually spend matching funds from our own accounts, and this we have actually done, that we have had about £3,500 worth of extra events, either hiring the Coletti Lecture Theatre so that we can have special talks, if you remember Robert McNaught, in the summer. And so in actual fact I don't have to give any money back to the Royal Astronomical Society. We spent a lot, and we legally spent a lot, which is always nice. So that is finished. Oops. And so this is the expenditure for the year 2013-14. It's pretty much as normal, I would say. There's nothing to me that stands out as unusual in the expenditure column. You may wish to dispute that statement. And we ended up with a modest deficit of £2,500, which, if you think that in 2012-13 we had a £10,000 bequest, it's slightly better than the previous year. And so we end up with a cash balance for the end of 30th of September 2014 of £105,000, which now no longer has any money set aside from the Royal Astronomical Society grant, but does have the value of the Dewhurst Fund that remains. And so hopefully over the years, as initiatives are taken, this will gradually be decreased in good causes that David Dewhurst would like to see us spend it on. So I'll stop there. Any questions? You can always email. Yep.
I noticed a large charge for credit cards.
Huh?
Noticed a large charge for credit card costs. Why do we need to pay that?
We have if people pay by credit card, the company that rents us the terminal makes a charge for it. American Express also makes a charge for it. And when you pay by direct debit, there is also a charge for that. So everybody takes a little bit off it for giving us the service, but it's still, we find it's still much better to offer people these facilities rather than to say you either write a cheque or pay cash.
Or use a debit card.
I'm not sure we can actually take debit cards.
Yes, we can. We can, but they are processed through the terminal that the credit
I was
cards
going to say
go
that the terminal, as I said, the charge is actually for the terminal that we're using rather than the credit card charge as well. American Express does actually explicitly charge us, which is why a lot of shops won't take American Express.
Thank you.
So we do have to pay these charges, and it is a good thing to do. It certainly helps us sell a lot of merchandise and gather in subscriptions.
Okay, so I now need a proposal and a seconder from the floor to accept the accounts. Could I have a proposer, please? Margaret. And a seconder? Thank you.
And all in favour?
We agree? We agree.
Thank you.
Is over to you.
Thank you. We now move on to appoint the independent financial examiner, who is the good gentleman who had a look at Helen's accounts when she's finished with them. I would like a proposal from the floor to reappoint Mr. Dushko Novakovic as the independent financial examiner, please. This is where everybody thinks. Thank you, Derek. And a seconder. Thank you, John. And all in favour?
Yeah.
Thank you. So we move forward to the election of counsel for the 2015 session. There were no additional nominations after the publication of the notice of AGM, so the elections can be made en bloc. So I will read the list of officers and counsel up for election, and then seek a proposal and seconder from the floor. As President, Professor Ian Robson. As Vice President, Professor Tim O'Brien and Mr. Robin Scadgel. As Treasurer, Dr. Helen Walker. Secretary, Mr. Guy Fenimore. Counsel, Dr. Megan Argo, Professor Ian Morrison, Mr. Ian Papworth, Dr. Margaret Penston and Mr. Paul Sutherland. If I could have a proposal from the floor, please. Thank you. And a seconder? Yep, thank you. And all in favour? Thank you very much. So at that point, I think I ought just to say a word of thanks very briefly to retiring members of Council. First of all, to Derek Ward-Thompson, who now ceases to be our Vice President, having been involved as Vice President, then President, and then Vice President for a total of 4 years. So thanks to Derek for his input. Thanks also to Barry Turvey, who is not here today, but who, although not part directly of this election at this meeting, is stepping down as Membership Secretary, and Ian Papworth, who we've just elected as an ordinary Member of Council at the moment, will be taking over from Barry, and by the April meeting will be fully in place as Membership Secretary. So Ian is up there, and he will be chasing you. Barry has been giving him lessons as to how to chase people for their renewals. So you all know that you never argue with Barry, and Ian's even worse. So those are the retiring members, and I would like to make a special welcome also to a new face. Well, he's not a new face. Well, he will be unless you're up early enough to see BBC Breakfast often enough. Professor Tim O'Brien from Manchester University, who is here, I'm sure most of you are familiar, joins us as Vice President. He'll be Vice President with his L plate on for a year, and then he will be taking over from Ian Robson for 2 years as President. So that is the conclusion of the AGM.